You felt that shift too, huh? One moment we were laughing, next thing boom, everything's crashing like it's karma on steroids. You screamed it was coming, but they shrugged. You warned M, but they scrolled. You told M this game ain't built for the lazy or the loud. And now, ouch. Now they're broken, and begging for a second chance. Damn, suddenly, the crazy one don't look so crazy anymore. They laughed when you prepped. They mocked when you moved quiet. They rolled eyes when you said, yo, the system's about to flip, and now the system's eating them alive raw. No filter, no warning. Just cold, reality served, Joker style. Look around. Everything they thought was secure is melting. Money, glitching, truth, twisted, trust. Dead on arrival. They used to say you were paranoid. But what do they say now, huh? Now that the floor's cracking, now that the masks are slipping, now that the clowns became kings, and the kings are nowhere to be seen. ... You weren't crazy. You were early. And early always looks insane till the collapse confirms it. Asterisk, so now they're watching you from behind locked screens, whispering, damn. Maybe they were onto something. But back then, they called you a doomsday preacher. They said, why so serious? Ooh, now the joke's on them. Because while they were vibing to comfort, you were dancing with chaos and learning its rhythm. You didn't panic, you pivoted. You didn't wait, you moved. You didn't post, you planned. And now the whole map is flipping like a deck of Joker cards, their leaders, shaking, their gurus, ghosted, their mentors, muted, and you're out here breathing like you already read the script twice. OOF. The truth hurts, huh? They wanted you small, silent, safe. But the storm came and only those who, trained in the shadows, survived it. They underestimated your silence. They mocked your discipline. They labeled your distance antisocial. But ouch, look who's socially bankrupt now. You're not just surviving, you're standing tall, while the rest are Googling how to stay calm when reality burns. And that burn, it's real now. Not a meme, not a tweet. REAL pain. Real losses, real lessons. But guess what? Now they listen. Now your warnings sound like gospel. Now your shadow looks like a blueprint, too late. Because while they laughed at your bunker, you were building your empire under it. Damn right, you saw it coming. You warned M, and now the silence you kept, it screams louder than all their fake noise ever did. Asterisk, now everybody wanna act woke. But when it was time to open their eyes, they chose comfort over clarity. Ooh, the irony is loud. Laughed when you read between the lines. But now, they're crying over headlines. You didn't just see the collapse. You calculated it. You didn't just dodge the trap. You reverse engineered the whole maze. While they were out chasing trends, you were mapping exits. While they partied in the fire, you studied the smoke. And now they're suffocating on their own denial. Now they're Googling survival guides and quoting the very things they once mocked you for. Damn. Tables don't just turn, they spin. Like roulette when karma's the dealer. And guess who's sitting pretty with his chips untouched? Yeah, you. Because when the world called you paranoid, you turned it into preparation. When they called you dramatic, you built discipline. And when they said, it's not that deep, you dove headfirst into the chaos and came back with maps, scars, and receipts. Ouch, now they bleeding from wounds you tried to warn them about. Funny thing is, they still ain't learned. They're still waiting for normal to reboot. But you You ain't ever going back. Because normal was the lie, comfort was the cage, and you picked a lock. So let M panic, let M spiral, let M drown in their delayed awareness. You already moved 3 steps ahead. While they're screaming, why didn't anyone tell us? You're sitting there like I did. You just thought it was a joke. Asterisk, ooh, they're choking on the silence now. Not because you're loud, but because their whole world is echoing with your warnings. The same folks who called you negative, now calling you necessary. The same ones who said you were too intense, now wish they listened just once. But ouch, that's the price of ignorance. It don't just cost money, it costs reality. And reality don't take IOUs. Damn, the same streets they flexed on, now swallowing their pride. The same rooms they bragged in, now feel like coffins. Because the game flipped the script, and the real ones ain't reading from the same dusty page. You adapted, they copied. You predicted, they panicked. Now everybody's claiming they knew it all along. But the truth, they only believed it when it got too loud to ignore. And you didn't need a crowd to clap for your clarity. You walked through the fire with no applause, no retweets, no likes, just instinct. Instinct that told you they ain't ready for the storm. They laugh at. Oh, if you were right. Now they stuck on pause while you're in fast forward. Now they studying survival while you're mastering strategy. Now they're realizing this ain't a movie. No second takes. No heroes on standby. Only those who saw it early and moved in silence get to sit front row to this madness unshaken. See, it was never about being liked. It was about being aware. It was never about clout. It was about control. And while they chase attention, you chose positioning. That's why you're untouched. Because you didn't wait for the world to fall, you got out before the cracks showed. And now they finally understand the punchline. You weren't the joke. You were the foreshadowing. Asterisk, ooh. Now they're sitting in rooms that used to feed their ego, but feel like haunted houses. They're not smiling anymore, because the masks melted, the filters failed, and all that's left, a mirror. OUCH. That mirror ain't lying. It's showing them exactly who ignored the signs, who laughed when you built, who scoffed when you vanished, who thought silence meant weakness. But now, silence looks like power. Stillness looks like strategy. And you look like a damn architect of survival. Damn, they went left. You went deep. They clowned. You calculated. Now they're drowning in a flood they thought couldn't touch them, and guess who's bone dry? You, because you built your ark while they built a following. They thought it was about going viral, but you knew it was about going invisible until the storm passed and the dust cleared. They can't find peace now, because you became the peace they never respected. You became the blueprint they never studied. You became the consequence of every time they didn't listen. Now they whisper your name in rooms full of panic. Now they quote your words like scripture they use to mock. Now they search your silence like it holds answers they finally want. But, it's too late. You're not waiting. You're not explaining. You're not turning around for the ones who laughed at the flames you tried to warn them about. Because when the fire came, you didn't run. You became the flame. And now they see it in your eyes, in your moves, in the way you ain't moved at all through the collapse. They used to ask, why are you so cold? Now they ask, how are you so calm? Easy, because the chaos they fear. You faced it already. and made it bow. Asterisk, OOH. They don't laugh now, because reality hit harder than your words ever did. They mocked the vibe, but now they living inside the nightmare you tried to decode for M.C. They thought the system was solid, thought the lights would stay on, thought the money would always flow. But damn, they bet everything on a lie that looked like luxury. You bet on discomfort, you bet on discipline, you bet on that small voice that said, this all looks a little too fake to be real. And now that it's all glitching, they're running to your past like it holds their future. OUCH, you didn't just survive the collapse, you predicted the rhythm of it, step by step. You told M, the louder it gets, the faker it is. The bigger the smile, the darker the agenda, the flashier the life, the emptier the soul. And now they crying out, asking, what now? Now you sit back, because you ain't one of them. You were never one of them. You didn't fit in, because you weren't built for the circus. You weren't made to dance for crumbs. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to see it coming, outsmart the wave, and exit silent while they drowned in denial. And ooh, they feel it now. Not just in their pockets, in their spine, in their guts, in that aching silence where their certainty used to be. You're the reminder, the echo, the walking answer to the question, what happens when the truth refuses to shut up? Damn, they should have listened when you whispered, because now the world's screaming in their face, and it sounds just like you. Asterisk, OOF. They finally stopped laughing. But not because they understand, it's because they're exhausted. Exhausted from pretending they had it all figured out. Exhausted from chasing trends that disappeared like smoke. Exhausted from lying to themselves, just to avoid admitting you were right. Damn, how'd you come back from that? From realizing the person you mocked was the only one who actually made it out. Ooh, they scroll in silence now, watching you move, watching you speak less and win more, watching you glow different because pressure forged something in you they ain't never seen before. While they were trying to be liked, you became unforgettable. While they clung to the algorithm, you mastered the atmosphere. While they begged to fit in, you walked alone until the world caught up. Out. Ooh, so now they listen, now they care. Now they want to know what you knew, how you knew it, and why you never said it louder. Ouch, but what would have been the point? You spoke when it mattered. They ignored it. You vanished. They laughed. You evolved. They entertained themselves to death. Damn, ... The circus they adored burned from the inside out. And the clowns they worshipped, now begging for audience. Funny how that works, huh? You walked away when it was crazy to disappear. You disconnected when it was weird to be quiet. You watched from the shadows while they got addicted to applause from ghosts. Now they need you. Now they want answers. But they don't want truth. They want comfort dressed as clarity. And you don't deliver lies. They don't realize. You're not coming back. You're not returning to explain. You're not rewinding to help them understand what they chose to ignore. You didn't come this far to hand out cheat codes to people who laughed while you were building armor. Ooh, you became the storm. Not because you wanted revenge, but because peace is expensive. And you paid for it with every ounce of being misunderstood. And that's the real pain, not the collapse, not the chaos, but knowing that the ones who swore they had time never used it. Now they're stuck, chasing pieces of a puzzle you finished years ago. And what are you doing? Walking away, no mic drop. No, I told you so. No victory lap, just calm footsteps on ground that used to shake under your feet. Asterisk, ooh. Look around now, ain't it poetic? The same people who used your name for punchlines now flinch when they hear it whispered in passing. You became that story they don't tell in full, just in fragments. Because the full version, it makes M look small. It makes you look inevitable. And ouch, they can't handle that mirror. They keep asking each other, yo, how did he know? How did she predict it? They want the blueprint, but they don't want the discipline that built it. They want the glow, but not the grind. They want the throne, but not the years of exile that made you ready for it. Damn, and now you're the myth, the rumor, the ghost behind every closed-door meeting. You don't need to speak anymore. Your absence got more weight than their entire presence. And that's the part that's killing M quietly. You didn't just survive what broke them, you transcended it. You didn't dodge the collapse, you let it hit, and used the rubble to build a fortress. Now they out here, confused, nervous, spinning circles, trying to reinvent themselves, while you walk like the ending was written in your eyes the whole time. They had fame, you had foresight. They had noise, you had knowledge. They had momentum, you had meaning. And now the scoreboard's updated, and it's not even close. They scroll your shadow. They study your silence. They fear your next move, because they know you don't speak unless it's a checkmate. Asterisk, oof. You know what really haunts them. It's not the collapse, not the silence, not even your success. It's the fact that you never came back to explain. You never said, I told you so. You never gloated, never flexed, never clapped back. You just disappeared into the future you warned them about. And that silence, it's louder than any speech they'll ever make. Ouch. Now they repeat your old lines like mantras, trying to remember what you said, how you said it, hoping maybe, just maybe, there's still time. But there isn't, because you left the building when the fire alarm was still a whisper. You evacuated your ego. You left the stage before it, collapsed on the performers. They stayed, they smiled, they entertained the noise, and now they're buried under the applause they were addicted to. Damn, see, you never wanted revenge. You wanted freedom. And the moment you stopped needing validation, you became something they'll never touch. Not viral, not popular, untouchable. And that's the scariest part, because it means they lost you forever. You became the storm they joked about, the prophecy they ignored, the legend they now pretend they understood. But it's too late. You outgrew the story, outpaced the collapse, outlived the noise, and now you don't need to be seen. Because you became the silence that speaks for itself. Asterisk, so now, let them scroll, let them post, let them pretend they weren't the ones laughing, mocking, doubting, back when you were just a whisper in the noise. Let them act like they knew, like they saw it coming, like they were always on your side. But you remember the silence you sat in when no one clapped, when your caution was called paranoia, when your discipline looked like delusion, when your distance made you the problem, when every word you said was just too much. But you didn't break, you didn't explain, you didn't trade clarity for company. You just watched the same people who warned you not to overthink get swept away by the very storm you mapped from day one. Now everything's upside down and you're still standing, not because you're lucky, but because you learned to walk through fire without screaming. They don't understand how you're so calm, how you move like you've already seen the outcome. But it's simple. You've been here before. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You ran the simulation 100 times in your head, while they were still chasing dopamine in comment sections. And now you don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't even need to be seen, because you've already done what most people feared doing. You let go of the version of you they could control, and in return, you became the version they'll never understand. So stay low, stay locked in, stay dangerous. Because when the next storm hits, they'll still be asking questions, and you'll already be gone. 2 exits ahead, 10 moves deep, and light years beyond anything they were. Ready for power isn't loud, it's prepared. And you, fam, you've been ready.